Hello and welcome to this episode of the Clean Bill of Wealth podcast. I'm your host, Gallie, and as always, this is the spot where I interview people who are out to enhance the lives of physicians, especially in Canada. This is where I talk to people about such topics such as health, wealth, relationships, well-being, side hustles, practice management, and much more. Now, there are a few big changes that I want to make sure you are aware of. So first off, as always, you can head on over to GalenHelpsDocs.com. That's Galen helpsdocs.com to sign up for the Financial Literacy Challenge I've created, a series of videos and a worksheet where I tackle big questions I get around finances, like how to make the most of the medicine professional corporation, what are the different types of insurance and investments I should be looking at in Canada, and then pitfalls I see around retirement planning in Canada. So head on over for that. And once you do sign up for that, you'll be on my mailing list and you'll be the first to know when I have a new episode out or when I have a new whiteboard video out where I'm making complex financial concepts simple. Now, big news, if you do head on over the site, you're going to see that there's a new button there where you can book a free, no strings attached consult with me. That's for anyone who's saying, look, Galen, I love the idea of your videos. I love the idea of the workbook. I'm not sure I'm going to find time for all that. I just have one big burning question I'd love answered, or I want some of your time to answer these questions. Head on over there. If you want to get in touch with me, if you want to spend some time and ask me a question, be sure to head on over there and book a spot. Last big announcement, huge one. I have started recording masterclass sessions with my guests. So we are covering amazing topics such as how to start a side business quickly, important concepts around money, mindset, and much more. And those videos are only available when you sign up for the challenge. There's a section in there in the membership site was the masterclass series. So when you get to the end of an episode and you hear me talking about the masterclass session that I'm about to film with the guest, that's where you're going to find it. So thanks so much for tuning in for these updates, and on with the show. All right, everyone. Welcome to a Clean Bill of Wealth podcast. I'm your host, Galen, and I'm joined today with Dr. Annie Gallie. And Dr. Gallie, in case you don't know, is a family physician and life coach out of Calgary, right?
Yes, I'm in Calgary, Alberta, yeah.
But I'm on Zoom. I always forget where people are. I need to put it in a big sticky note out of Calgary, Alberta. So welcome to the show, Dr. Gallie.
Thank you so much for having me. Such a pleasure.
I know I'm very excited to talk about what you're up to in the world and how, as a physician, you've also got the life coaching going on. I just find it fascinating when physicians take on something outside of their practice, and to see how that came about. So, is there anything around your introduction that I missed that I should add in that you'd like to make sure people know about you?
Sure. No, I'm a family physician and life coach, just like you said, working in Calgary. And I work with overachievers and helping them find clarity. And what's fascinating about clarity is it's like this unicorn that everyone chases and everyone wants, right? And clarity comes from action. And so what I truly do is help people become unstuck so they can move into action. And a lot of times that's stuck in overwhelm for the people that I attract. A lot of them physicians, tend to go into overwhelm. And so I help them become unstuck from that.
Yeah, no, I love that clarity coming from action, because I think a lot of times I certainly get stuck in a pattern of, I think clarity is going to come from me thinking more about something or analyzing more about something or planning more about something. I have these giant pieces of paper on the house where I'll map things out and I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. But none of it means anything until I take action. So that's really cool.
Absolutely. And I found that again and again in my personal life and again in all my clients' lives, it's the number one most important thing to get you going. So we look at a lot about overwhelm and I guess it's kind of important to kind of define overwhelm in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
If you look at Google, it says buried beneath a huge mass, or I like this one, to give too much of a thing, right? To kind of overburden ourselves. But for me, I think clarity or overwhelm is just an unrealistic to-do list that in our heads that we just feel compelled to accomplish every day. And so for me, that's what overwhelm is, and what I feel passionate about helping people break free from. And I think for physicians, we have these wonderful traits. We have these wonderful traits that we're empathic, caring, intelligent, reliable, but we're also perfectionists. We're people pleasers. We do have this all or nothing thinking. And all of those in combination with kind of our society's norms of trying to fit it all in and have this big balance of all the things and do well with all of it, just really perpetuates this overwhelm in physicians as well as other professionals that I think is not necessary. We
Yeah,
don't
and
have to be there.
it doesn't have to be that way. And I think that there's just a common sort of consensus that it is going to be that way. Like, you are going to be overwhelmed. You're going to be dealing with this, and it's like, it is the way it is. Especially among high achievers and physicians, where there's just so many things on the plate and so many things on the go. But what I was going to ask, and you did answer it a bit, was like, what's up with high achievers? Like you're saying, like, you have all these wonderful traits but there's also like this element of like high achieving, but also overwhelm, like / lack of contentment and like clarity, like you were saying. Like, what's up with that?
Yeah, I think that what happens is we almost these overachievers, and I put myself in this umbrella as well, right? Because that's how I came into life coaching, right? Is that we are all of these traits that we have can actually work against us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we try to please everyone, we're going to please no one, and we're certainly not going to please ourselves, right? If we think that everything's going to be has to be perfect or it's not good enough, we're never going to win, right? So it's like that. So that's why I talk about this like perpetual list that we always have. But the reality is you never get through the list. And so it's like this cycle that you never get out of. So it's this, you're in the hamster wheel over and over, and it shows up. So overwhelm can show up as being stuck, right? So you're just not moving forward, not making decisions, not, doing what you should be doing. And then for me, it was like, I loved my life, like really, truly, like things are good, right? Like had a good job, like all the things. But it's like you want to have a pause button or something. You know what I mean? Like, hey, can I just pause my life for a second? I just need just 2 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, can I just, and the other thing is that I think that overwhelm for overachievers, it's almost like our life starts happening to us rather than for us, right? Like we don't take ownership or make choices of how we want to have our lives play out. We just kind of, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. I have 2 small kids and I work full time. Oh, this is just how it is. And it kind of getting that, it's like we get this kind of, oh, that's how it is, right? And I'm here to say that it doesn't have to be that way.
Got it. So I'd love to dive into what if there was a pivotal moment. You mentioned a little bit about how life's good, but you felt like you needed this pause button. I'd be interested to know if there's a pivotal moment that got you interested in life coaching, and then maybe a look at like specifics around examples of some people that have come to you with overwhelm and how you've helped get them out of it. And one thing I want to say very quickly about the to-do list is so every time I interview anyone who's talking about high achievers, I'm like, oh, I guess I'm one too, because I never classify myself as one. Like, I don't think of myself as one. But then, like, when they talk about the characteristics, I'm like, check, check, check. A picture that gave me a lot of, peace of mind is one of my favorite pictures in the world is a picture of Einstein's office the day he passed away. After he passed away. And it's like his desk is covered in books and papers. His chalkboard is covered in stuff. It's like he didn't finish. And it's like, and I'm like, I got peace with that. Like, cause like I'm going to live at the end of my life. It'll be good if I've still got things on the go. Cause it means that like I'm living a full life. And like that idea of getting to the end of a to-do list is simply not, like, if you're keeping a to-do list, you'll never get to the end of it, because it's like, that's just not possible. Like, it's not even the purpose of a to-do list. Like, I mean, I don't know how to actually like get to the end of it, because there's always other things coming up. But yeah, I just thought I'd throw that out there. It's like my favorite picture in the world is like Einstein's office, just like he wasn't done. And like, I won't be done at the end of my life either. I'm going to leave behind a whole bunch of whiteboards full of stuff that I didn't get around to finishing.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I mean, that's like just growth, like perpetual growth, right? Like, we're always looking at something else. And that's beautiful. I think what's fascinating about when I use the word overachievers is people just like discount themselves as being overachievers. And I think that actually is like a character trait where we underplay what we've accomplished, or we underplay our role, we underplay like how kick-ass we are in the world, right? And I have a lot of my clients come in, and their first session is just me kind of talking about that. And we often do like a lot of work on just being like, tell me about what you have done, right? And stand into that, right? Because overachievers in general just keep trying to go to the next thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't celebrate where we are. And a lot of times I work with my clients to do that, right? And I sit there rather than moving on. So it's really fascinating that you're like, I'm not really an overachiever. And you're like,
Well, it's funny because, and I think I love it that you're saying that. I think a characteristic of overachievers is that they don't self-identify as high achievers or overachievers. And it's funny because I'm a big fan of coaching. I've always got, like, for the last 6 years of my life, at every given point, I've had a coach in my life that's helped me see things that I wasn't going to see on my own. And I'm a huge fan of the work that you're doing. And one of the things I had to do for one of my coaching programs was interview people in my life and be like, how would you describe me? And the one word that everyone had in common was driven. And then I came back with my results and I jokingly said to my coach, well, my friends obviously don't know me very well. Because I was like, I don't see myself as driven. And I'm like, I don't know what it would take to see myself as driven, but I don't see myself as driven. And so it was pretty funny, like, insight. And I mean, I imagine most people that you're coaching, if they ask their friends, they'd be like, oh my gosh, you've always got so much on the go, or you always get so many things done. I mean, I imagine there's people that are achieving high things in fitness and family and travel and business and everything. So, like, there's one of those people for other people that are doing a lot, but they themselves don't see it, or they don't stop and celebrate.
yeah, they don't stop or celebrate or like become aware of, right? And it's so fascinating because like overachievers in general, they they don't see how phenomenal they are, right? And
Mm,
so what is interesting and what life coaching kind of comes down to, and whether you're working on weight loss, I think you had, I don't know, burnout, you're working on overwhelm, you're working on relationships, you're working on whatever. It all comes down to self-worth and our self-concept and our self-confidence. And I think for me, coaching has done like the biggest benefit for me has been my self concept and how I think about and how I
mm,
talk about myself to myself is has helped me show up more authentically as a mom, as a physician, as a life coach. And the reason I do the life coaching is because I just want to share this information with people because it is the secret sauce. So you can go along and love your life, right? Achieve, you know, do well, all that kind of stuff. A life coach just helps you become more intentional with that and allows you to look forward and choose how you want things to go. And that's just so powerful. So, yeah, can't say enough about that.
oh, that's awesome. I'm definitely like, and like you were tying back, like, so the intentionality in life. And then also you'd mentioned earlier, they create a life that I can't remember exactly how you put it, but it doesn't work for them. It's like they're working in the life rather than it working for them, and
Yeah,
like
yeah,
shifting that. Yeah. No, I love
yeah.
that. And so was there a pivotal moment where you just like were like, this is the, like you've already said, the secret sauce, like this is it? Like, what was there a
I
moment
know,
where you're
I'm
like, oh
totally
my gosh?
sold. Yeah, so I guess for me, a couple years ago, just over almost 3 years now, my mom passed away suddenly from stage 4 lung cancer. And so she was my best friend and very close to me. And so that was a pretty big event in my life. And so after that time, I did the counseling thing. I kind of went through all that. And then I got to the point where I was kind of searching for more.
Hmm.
It's like I had my head up. And I think that at that time, I definitely was in and out of overwhelm, but I didn't recognize it at all. I had no idea. I just thought it was normal that, because I had two small kids and all that kind of stuff. And so I ended up finding self coaching from podcasts. I'm a huge podcast listener. So I'll start listening to your podcast more too. I do it when I walk my dog. I don't know if anyone else does that or clean the house, that kind of thing. And then, yeah, I soon after that, I was like, okay. And I signed up for teacher training through the life coach school. And then here I am. And now I'm coaching. It's wonderful.
Yeah, so it sounds like it took you from that state, like you weren't even necessarily aware of coming in and out of overwhelm,
No.
and then you went through an experience that helped you identify that. And then what did it help shift for you?
I guess the biggest shift for me in coaching was that nothing had to change in my life for me to enjoy it more. And that truly is it. I actually, a lot of things haven't really changed. I mean, yes, we're in a global pandemic, and I can talk about that as well. I think I guess our biggest thing in this global pandemic, and this is more to do with like mental health and emotional health. But as physicians and professionals and overachievers, we all had like our own toolkits for emotional health before the pandemic kind of hit, right? And then the pandemic hit, and we really had to kind of bear down on those, right? And what I think is important is that we really take a second to acknowledge that our mental and emotional health is kind of number one. Okay. So investing in our mind, investing in that really permeates into all facets of our life. Right. And so for me, when I actually started like investing in my mind, investing in thought work, investing in coaching, that's where everything shifted for me. I don't feel overwhelmed. I'm looking forward and like thinking intentionally about what I want. It's helped me in my relationships, how I show up in my confidence as a physician, as a female physician, as a leader. And so for me, it has shifted everything. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. And I'm hearing that, I mean, so like, just so everyone's 100% aware of this, like you are a practicing physician.
Oh yeah.
You are
full-time.
Yeah. Full-time practicing physician.
And it's funny. Yeah, no, I'm a practicing physician in COVID times. I think, I don't know how many times I've been swamped in this pandemic, but a lot. We're always on outbreak. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely like when I've met, I mean, this year is one of the reasons why I shifted my podcast so from financial topics so much more towards health and well-being for physicians, is because just so many conversations in a row with my clients dealing with overwhelm and like burnout. I mean, just really
and like
consistently.
100%. And it kind of like goes hand in hand, right? And I think it's so fascinating because coming back to the overachiever, just kind of achieving all these amazing things, like physicians have so much education under their belts, so much like they're so brilliant, right? And I talk about them still because I'm like, who am I?
We're not brilliant. They're brilliant.
But I'm like, you know what I mean? It's, but it's true. I'm like, wow, what phenomenal humans. And they're so empathic. And there's this, this pandemic has been put all of them to the limit, right? Like I'm not an ICU doctor. I'm not an ER physician. And I have friends going through that. And I think that they need all the support they can get for sure. So,
yeah. And even, I mean, if you think about some of the specialists who maybe aren't overwhelmed, like surgeons or maybe like radiologists, but they're dealing with the uncertainty of having things rescheduled constantly and like thinking they're going to perform a surgery and then it doesn't happen because they have to go somewhere else. And it's just everywhere. And I love what you said about like the big realization you had around not having to actually change anything about your life to enjoy it and not being overwhelmed. And I think that's even hitting me where I'm like, is that how that works? Because it's always like, what's wrong with my life that I'm not enjoying it to the fullest, or that I'm in overwhelm? What do I need to change? And you're saying one of the big realizations is you can shift. And I mean, what is it? Like, is it a shift of perception, of way of being? Like, what do you shift?
Is really just shifting your thinking, truly. And I think that's, so overwhelm is coming from what we're telling ourselves, right? The story we're telling ourselves about the list we have, right? So you have a list, right? I mean, we all have a list. Like you have kids, I have kids, I'm a full-time physician, I have a husband, I have a dog that barfs on the carpet, you know what I mean? Like I have all the things, you know what I mean?
Yep.
the ailing parents, the house being sold, the house, all these things, right? And there's always a list, but the list is actually just a neutral entity.
Yeah.
Right? It's what we're telling ourselves about the list. Right? And often we're telling ourselves we have to do this or we should be able to do all of this. Right? And we're just constantly telling ourselves that, right? And that creates a feeling of overwhelm. It just does, right? And so becoming more aware of how you were thinking and how you're showing up there can change everything, truly, because that list, you really don't have to do any of it, do you? Like really?
Right.
Right? Like it's actually a choice to do that list, right? It's completely and 100% a choice. And that becomes more empowering, right? Like it's saying, I'm choosing to have kids. I'm choosing to have this job. I'm choosing to be an entrepreneur. I'm choosing to be a doctor. It feels so much better than not. And I think that kind of shift in perspective happens with life coaching. And there's so many different avenues of life coaching, right? There's like self-coaching, like you can do a podcast and listen to it and then do your own coaching. There's one-on-one coaching, which I prefer because I'm an introvert and like to have a relationship with somebody every week, that kind of thing. So maybe that's your jam. And then there's like the group coaching, right? So all of it is beautiful. I think you said that you had Dr. Blake on, and she's doing beautiful work in like a group setting, right? It's amazing, right? But there's a lot of physicians that are doing one-on-one or retreats or all these different avenues. And I think all of them are the right answer. It's what fits for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Who you connect with. That's it.
Yeah, and I love that idea of like that self-coaching, group coaching, one-on-one. And like to go back to the list for a second, like the list has the power that we give to it. Like in the sense of like, and I certainly can identify, like, I mean, one of the ways I do quote unquote lists is I put things in my calendar and I look at like, okay, am I going to get that done? Am I not going to get that done? And then I have ones that I push out every week. And so I have like just this one, basically Sundays for me is just like this crazy full of things that I'm like, but then eventually, like, it's funny. Some of them I look at and I'm like, why did I ever think that was important? Like, and it's partially just not being cognizant in the moment of like, is this a critical thing that I have to do, or could someone else do it? Or, does it even need to get done? And then I just keep pushing it. And then finally some of it gets like, oh yeah, like, I don't know why I thought that was so important. But yeah, no, totally. I can definitely see myself when I'm like in a good space and I look at that, it's like, cool, that's a lot of stuff. But I got to deal with what's in front of me right now. And other times I look at that and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, that's such a pile of stuff. I'm never going to get to it all. It just gets longer every day. And I can see how it really comes down to like how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, 100%. Our thoughts are everything. They give us our results every single day. And I think the more we can become aware and cognizant of that and how we are thinking, how we're talking to ourselves, the more freedom we create. We just create the freedom from there.
Yeah. And I think that it potentially sounds too good to be true. As I interview,
for sure,
because like I do have personal experience with coaching, and I've seen shifts happen like very quickly in my life. Like one of the big things before I was getting coached around anything was time. I just walked around all day long saying, I don't have time.
I don't have enough time.
I don't have enough time.
The scarcity of time, right?
Yeah, and guess what?
That comes back into coaching, into charting too for physicians. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the charting. That one's been shared quite a bit. The charting one. Yeah, but like when I walked around saying I didn't have time, that's what I got at the end of the day was like, I don't have time. And then when I shifted that to be like, I create time, or like, really like shifting my beliefs around what I had for time, it totally changed my relationship with time and my calendar. Cause I'm like, yeah, if I run around, and I mean, I see a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs. I mean, when I meet back in the good old days of in-person networking, it's like, how are you doing? Good, busy. It's like, good, busy. Like, that's like the answer. And everyone's just kind of like, okay, good. That's a good sign. You're busy. And it's like, maybe busy isn't like the badge of honor. It is like, maybe it's not really that badge of honor. Maybe it's like content. Like, what if that was the, or like you said, I'm clear, or like I have clarity. Like, how's it going?
Clear. I'm clear. I'm good.
People be like, what? But are you busy?
Yeah, but I think like our society perpetuates this, like we have to be busy to be productive, or like you have to, kind of, that's you being a professional. If you're busy, then you're successful or something.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, I fully agree with how you're talking about time and stuff like that. And yes, like a lot of this stuff, it seems too good to be true, but practice well. And that's what I said. You can do any sort of way you want to practice this kind of stuff. But you will get more results if you work with a coach. You just will, because it helps you kind of stay focused, right? And a lot of times, like for a lot of my people that I work with and physicians are actually female physicians who are moms as well. And so 45 minutes of actually just like intentional time thinking about you is like this like perfect, beautiful
Yeah.
And so for myself, I use that as sacred time every week with my own coach, right? And that helps me just set myself up and really clearly think about what I want and how I'm thinking. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm definitely like, I'm 100% on board with the power of having someone like you in one's life to have, like you just said, hold that sacred space, because people won't typically do that for themselves. Like, they're not typically going to take the time out of the day to do that. And like sometimes with my coach, all it is like, they're not even necessarily like, quote unquote, telling me what to do. It's like just having that space to say what I'm dealing with. So a lot of times I'll work through problems like very well on my own just because I've taken the time to talk to someone else about it who I know is listening from like a place of contribution and love. And like, I'm not worried about them berating me or like, any of that. It's like, it's very cool to have that space to like, to take that. And I can't help but wonder, like, can you share I know like obviously privacy and confidentiality and all that, but like, can you give an example of like, what's an example of someone who's come to you and said, you know what, I'm really experiencing overwhelm. And then like, what are sort of the steps or like, what does it look like for that person to shift from that place of overwhelm to like, oh, like I'm clear now.
Yeah, I guess it's like different for every single one of my clients. And like I can't really like divulge
Obviously,
information, but
yeah.
I would definitely say that I had an aha with a client the other day, and we've been working together for just over 3 months. And she came to me and she said, "You know what? I realized that I don't have to do this job. Like I could say no. If I ask for the time I want because she has kids and stuff like that, and they didn't give it to me, it would be okay, and I could find something else." And
Mm,
so for her, that realization of just knowing that she has a choice and that she has she's living her life more intentionally. She's looking forward. Because when we first started working together, she was just in like, oh, I don't have enough time. I'm
mm,
just completely overwhelmed with the amount of work she was getting from work, that she had to do all of those things, as well as the mom guilt. Huge in my clients, right? You know what I mean? Huge. And so to see her go from that state to being like, oh, I do have a choice and I can have advocacy for myself was, I mean, gives me goosebumps. So there you
yeah.
go.
I mean, it sounds like they went from feeling trapped and
Trapped.
like at
Yeah.
the mercy
Stuck,
of other people.
trapped, whatever. And now she's in this like more empowered state, right? And I think that it happens differently for everybody. Like
Yeah.
I have another client who runs her own business, who would always like every month kind of have this like burnout cycle where she would just at by the end of the month like kind of burn out. And since we've been working together, she's like, at the end of the month, I feel great.
Mm,
I don't feel stressed. And that's what life coaching can do for you. And similar to myself, like every time I'm on call, like we do five weekends a year or whatever, I don't feel stressed. I
mm,
don't burn out. I don't have the overwhelm that I used to experience. Um, and that's yeah. And I think that I think coming back to what you were talking about in a space of a life coach. So a life coach is there to hold the space and reflect back what your thinking is and help you look at your brain, right? And that's all it is. And the funny thing is that we all know what we want to do. We do. We really
mm.
do. We just don't necessarily take the time to listen to ourselves.
Yeah,
And a life coach just reflects that back for you. And
absolutely.
so, yeah.
And yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, that experience of that client going from that cycle of monthly overwhelm to like breaking that cycle.
Yeah.
And I can't help but ask about mom guilt because I feel like I haven't talked about that yet. And it's so huge. And like as a dad, I know there's dad guilt, but I also know that mom guilt has like a very special flavor
Yeah.
of guilt. And I see it in
Yeah.
Emma. So I'd love to learn more about it so I can understand it in Emma, my wife, to understand what it is.
I mean, really, like guilt is just an emotion or a feeling, right? And it is coming from, again, our thinking, right? So whatever we think we should be doing or should, you know what I mean? Whatever that is creating the guilt that actually helps us not show up as presently with our kids and stuff, right? Because we're, just in our minds, like just perpetuating this, like, oh my God, I should be doing something else. It's like you shouldn't be shitting yourself ever,
Mm,
right?
hmm.
um, but I think that like a lot of that has to do with underlying how you were raised, underlying societal beliefs. And so working with a life coach to kind of tease that out, right? Is really beneficial, right? Because I think that it is a really common thing to have for working moms
Yeah,
or not working moms, like
sure.
stay-at-home moms, because there's the stay-at-home moms too that say like I should be like doing this, or like, whatever. And then the working moms say, I should be doing this. And then the like, working part-time say, I should be doing this. And we're all just shitting ourselves. And it really, all of it is correct. All of it is right for your family. All of it is the right answer because it's for you and it is the reality. And so, how you want to show up in your life and how you want to be present with your kids and where they are in your hierarchy of your needs in your life is completely up to you and can be your choice, right?
Yeah. So it sounds like it's a lot around just like those expectations, whether internal, external, unseen or seen. Because I think there's a lot of unseen expectations that people don't identify. I don't know, Emma might kill me for this, but she
you can edit it out if you want here.
Yeah, just I feel like so Emma has to have a salad at every meal. And I think it's because her mom had to have a salad at every meal, and it's sometimes I think it's I don't know if she really wants to make the salad, but it's it's supposed to be there kind of. Yeah. And I mean, I'll pick on myself now because I shouldn't pick on Emma, but I feel like that's an example, just a simple example. But I mean, I know that I myself, and I'm not a mom obviously, but I had a lot of guilt around not teaching my kids Spanish because I grew up speaking English, moved to Venezuela, became fluent in Spanish as difficult as an adult. And I was like, for my kids, I'm going to speak to them in Spanish. So Emma and I were speaking to our kids in Spanish, or to each other in Spanish all day long in the house. And so our daughter was speaking Spanish. And then one day things happened, family moved in with us, too many languages. I didn't take that stand of this is what we're committed to, is our kids learning Spanish. And so I really let it drift. And I was really mad at myself for a really long time because now my kids are not bilingual at all. And I was really angry with myself for dropping the ball there, and a lot of shame around that. But then it's who set up this expectation? It was me. And would I love it for my kids to be able to bust out fluent Spanish if they needed to? Absolutely. But the weight I was giving that lack in my life was so heavy. And it actually it was messed with relationships with the people that I deemed to be sort of responsible for me not being able to continue with it, and myself. And finally a couple of years ago, I just let it go. And it was very freeing to just be yeah, I didn't teach my kids Spanish. 100%. That's it.
And what if nothing went wrong there?
Yeah, exactly. What if it wasn't?
But it is very fascinating how the expectations and stuff like that comes from us. And often the self-critic is always inside of us, right? And that comes back to, again, how do we talk to ourselves? How are we having our own back, right? You did the best you could with what was going on. Great.
And I think it's really tough for moms, because this is a theory I have, is that my parents' generation, and I mean, I know that the human condition has never stopped existing. People have self-doubt and all that. But I feel around parenting, that generation just did whatever the heck they wanted. And they did atrocious things to their children and hit them and all sorts of stuff. And they just didn't care. And then my parents' generation, I feel, was trying to wean that away. And then my generation, so I was a stay-at-home dad for 2.5 years. And I've really felt there was just so much self-doubt in the parenting community. Yeah. And there's more information than ever about parenting and whatnot. But I feel there was this generation that probably was doing terrible things, actually hitting their children and things like that, and just didn't think twice about it. And driving cars without seatbelts and never putting sunscreen on their kids, and then there's my generation that's trying so hard, I feel, to do the right thing, but feels like they can't do the right thing.
Yeah. And that can kind of get into overwhelm as well. I know that there are physicians and other people that do a lot of parent coaching because it's such in our society today, there's just so much information, right? And again, it comes down to our decisions, right? We can just make a decision and have our own back from it. We can just, this is how I'm going to raise my kid. Great.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's tough. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So many things. I mean, I guess I remember my mom saying there's these expectations people have for other people's kids too, that they need to be wearing shoes or they need to be wearing socks or whatever it is. And it's and people just come up to you when you have a kid. They didn't do it much with me because I think I'm a guy. I think they do it more with moms, where strangers would come up to me and be they basically say I think your kid is wandering too far away from you at the mall, or your kid should have gloves on right now. Yeah. And every time that happened, I did feel this sense of am I doing a bad job? Because I didn't have enough confidence at that time in my parenting. And I feel if someone's dealing with something, it's so that's brutal. Because obviously I don't know any parents that don't want to do a great job, but I know a lot who feel they're not doing a great job.
Yeah, for sure. And again, that comes back to I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
I'm not making the mark. I should be doing something better, or I should be a better parent, right? And what if we like dropped into, I'm exactly where I should be?
Yeah.
Right. And like had that more compassionate and accepting kind of place where you are. I mean, there's a book, Start Where You Are, all this stuff, right? It all comes down to that. But I think parenting is definitely something that I coach on a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it all comes back to your thoughts and how that's showing up. But you're right, society has huge expectations. But when I say society has huge expectations, it's actually you.
Yeah.
Nobody can make you think anything. Nobody can make you feel anything. Nobody hurts your feelings. You know what I mean? Like you're internalizing that and having a story around that. And I think that parenting, I think as a physician, what I have, I think every physician can probably relate to this, is a very humbling experience, right? Because you're like, yeah, I'm a family physician. I work with kids and blah, blah, blah. Or like my pediatrician friends are like, yeah, I'm a pediatrician, blah, blah, blah. You don't know until you're in it. You don't know, right? And I often have a thought that I really like for myself is I'm the perfect parent for my kid, right? I'm the perfect person for him. So
yeah. No, I like that. Yeah. No, I had all sorts of plans on what kind of parent I was going to be before I became one.
Of course we do.
It's like Mike Tyson has a saying, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Everyone has a plan until you actually have a kid.
Until you realize that, it's very humbling. It's fine. They're the biggest teachers we have, right? You know what I mean? Whatever they bring, it's beautiful. But yeah, I think that again, that goes back to kind of like this self-confidence, this self-worth of just being like, nope, this is how, my husband and I have decided to tackle this, and just being like, yep, you can have your feelings. You guys can have your feelings. That's cool.
Yeah, when the stranger tells me they should be wearing gloves, I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Sure. If they were your kid, they'd be wearing gloves. Cool.
Thanks. Awesome. Thanks. Roger that.
Roger that. Point taken.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Awesome. Well, this has been awesome. Is there anything else that you want to make sure people know 110% before we finish up?
Well, I just think that if you've been curious about coaching in any form, I think you should reach out, whether that's with me, whether that's with another one-on-one coach, whether that's with a group program, or you just start doing some podcasting and get curious about it. Investing in your mind is the best thing you could ever do for yourself.
Absolutely. 100%. Very cool.
Thanks so much for having me.
Oh no, this is awesome. I love jamming out and like ended up talking about all sorts of cool things that I had no idea we were going to talk about. So it's really awesome. Mom guilt and, changing perceptions and relationship with time. I love it. And so if people do want to reach out to you, what's the best way for people to follow you, contact you? Like, let's make sure everyone's got that.
Sure. So I'm on Instagram at Gallie. At Gallie. You can check out my website at AnnieGallieLC.com, and you can reach out by email at AnnieGallieLC@gmail.com.
Awesome. Yeah. So Instagram, website, and even your email.
Yeah, whatever you want. And yeah, I mean, I do free discovery calls, but really you can use it as just ask me some questions, and I'll point you in whatever direction you need.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. Sounds like a very nice, simple offer to help people figure out what they need and have a free discovery call.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Alrighty.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Hey there, thanks so much for having joined me on this episode of the Clean Bill of Wealth. I really appreciate you taking your time and having listened to this episode, whether you're multitasking, driving, walking the dog, or jogging. Really, really appreciate it. As always, feel free to head on over to GalenHelpsDocs.com to sign up for the Financial Literacy Challenge and be added to the email list so you'll be the first to know when there's a new episode out or when I've added a new whiteboard video to the series. Also there, you'll see a button if you want to just book some time with me. If you have a big question around finances, you're not sure you're going to find the time to go through the videos and the challenge and the workbook, feel free to book a no strings attached call with me. And the last big thing is if you do sign up for the challenge, you will also get access to the masterclass videos that I've started filming with my guests around things like money mindset and how to start a side business quickly and many more to come. So be sure to head on over to GalenHelpsDocs.com if you want to check that out, and I will see you on the next episode. Have a great day.